let's start here. Quite an interesting interview transpired over the last hour. It was former President Joe Biden, a coming out, if you will, after Trump's 100 days in office. He wrapped his first television interview in the U.S. since leaving the White House. And who better to do it with than your biggest fans, the ladies of The View? He was asked why he thinks Trump won the presidential election. Listen to what he said.
So why do you think the vice president lost, and were you surprised?
I wasn't surprised, not because I didn't think the vice president was the most qualified person to be president. She is. She's qualified to be president of the United States of America. Right. But I was surprised. I wasn't surprised because they went the route of the sexist route, the whole route. I mean, this is a woman. She's this. She's that. I mean, it really. I've never seen quite as successful and a consistent campaign undercutting the notion that a woman couldn't lead the country, and a woman of mixed race.
Yeah.
And they played that to a fairly well.
You know, Harris, he talked about they played the mixed race card. I don't recall Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Caroline Leavitt, anyone in President Trump's orbit bringing up the race of Kamala Harris. That seems like a horribly horrific lie and excuse, and yet that's the reason he's bringing it to The View.
Well, he has his own agenda on all of this. He's trying to rescue a sinking ship, better known as his legacy and reputation. So good luck with that. The only time I remember it was when basically the president was ambushed at the NABJ convention. And, you know, we had one reporter go after him, and race did come up in that conversation decidedly. But what former President Biden is talking about is a reason to blame because they didn't want him. And then he goes on with, beyond that, why they might not have wanted her. He picked her for vice president. So if he thought that those were going to be an issue, the minute they put her atop the ticket, he should have been out there vociferously, out there really defending her, but he wasn't. It was so hard to understand him. He was still the mumbling and at times bumbling person that they didn't want on the left, and the nation decided they didn't want. So he can play the mixed race card, as he calls it, all he wants, but I don't think he's understanding the moment, and it's an opportunity for him to say, look, we didn't get some things right. I want to help my party now and tell them Bidenomics weren't the answer. He could be useful in this moment to the party if he cared about it more than he cares about himself.
Yeah, and instead he argues that that was the central message of the Trump campaign. In no way, shape, or form was it. He then says that he was asked very specifically, would you have beaten President Trump? Here's what he said.
Mr. President, you had previously said that you thought that you would have won. Since then, Donald Trump won all the battleground states and made inroads with almost every major demographic, from working class voters to Hispanic men to black men. Knowing what you know now, do you think you would have beat him?
Yeah, he still got 7 million fewer votes.
Yes.
Okay. A lot of people didn't show up.
Okay, so he could have beaten Trump, except let's bring up facts. Here is the Real Clear Politics average, Lisa. You see that Trump was beating him when he dropped out by 3.1% in the polling. That is more than double than what Kamala Harris lost by. And as a reminder, she lost the popular vote by 2 million.
Yeah, I mean, Kaylee, the numbers tell the story, as you just showed on the screen there. I just keep asking myself, now that Joe Biden has resurfaced, when did the cover-up begin? Because everyone keeps asking the question, should he have run for re-election in 2024? But I think the real question is, should he have run in 2020? Because if you remember, he had the basement campaign, right? And his team blamed the pandemic, but was it the pandemic, or did his team around him already see the fact that he was mentally deteriorating in 2020? And then we saw throughout he did most of his stuff from the basement in Wilmington, Delaware. He did his teletown halls there. He did speeches. He did interviews, all from his basement in 2020. And then we saw throughout his presidency where he took more leave, or he took 48 years of leave in 4 years, according to the RNC. He worked about a 30-hour work week, according to reports. He was barely seen as president. So I think the better question is, should he have run in 2020? When did this cover-up begin?
When did the cover-up begin? And notably, he did the first half of the interview, and then they brought on Joe Biden. And it took her about 0.5 seconds to cut off Joe Biden. Ironically, when he was talking about mental acuity, let's bring in the former First Lady.
You know, one of the things that Well,
Well, and Alyssa, you know, one of the things I think is that the people who wrote those books were not in the White House with us. And they didn't see how hard Joe worked every single day.
Wow.
I mean, Griff, I thought he was the one totally in control, but she has to come in?
Well, and you know what's fascinating is, and I watched the first 30 minutes just with President Joe Biden, and in typical Biden fashion, he made glaring mistakes over and over again. The one that really stood out is they asked the operable question, which is, had you gotten out earlier, could Harris have actually had a chance? Alyssa Griffin asked that question, and he said, I gave her a full 6 months. Like 6 months, you gave her 100 days before you got out. And now you've got Jill Biden stepping in to rescue her husband. And a lot of people are speculating, are they going to write a book? Are they doing The View because they're going to go write a book? The question now is, a little bit to Lisa's point, will that book really tell the true story of the mental acuity decline? Or will it simply just be trying to blame Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Barack Obama for not supporting Biden, you know, and unearthing a lot of, you know, dirty laundry, so to speak? That's not a book that's going to sell. What will sell is if the American people can finally learn the truth.
Like, comment, and follow us on X @PatriotMediaGRP.